Cornfields surrounded the entire landscape, threatening to swallow Caesar whole as he sped through rural Indiana. The crops were endless in all directions, as though the road and his car had intruded on a sacred region dedicated to the production of the maize's bounty. It was early in the season, so the stalks hadn't quite reached their full potential. "You and me both," he breathed, then glanced at the laptop, wondering why on God's green earth he'd been dispatched to the middle of nowhere. The boss typically offered more details, expecting his associate to figure out the rest, but Caesar wasn't in the mood for games. "Where is this place?" Caesar's GPS had disconnected, and he figured they were too far in the boonies for a tower, but his music was still streaming. He pulled over, hugging the shoulder as a semi blasted by, honking his horn. The truck was clearly speeding, but that was well out of Caesar's jurisdiction. He grabbed the cell phone from his cup holder and re-entered the town's name, Carmichael. The program found no matches and offered a series of alternatives. Caesar didn't have any issues with it 3 hours prior after landing at the Indianapolis airport and securing the rental. He quickly entered Carmichael into a web browser and saw no results. It had to be nearby. The last he'd checked, the dash suggested he'd arrive in 40 minutes, and he guessed that was a half hour ago. He waited for a pickup to trundle by, then hurried to avoid getting stuck behind a tractor. The driver wore a straw hat and looked as old as the nearby dirt. Caesar gunned it, pushing the engine into the red line, and eased up, not planning on damaging another rental. His boss forgave the first couple of incidents, but he was on thin ice since the bust in Raleigh. He grinned, picturing Harrison's face while reading that invoice. 10 minutes later, he thought he'd passed the same house for the second time, but that was impossible. Everything appeared to be identical. Rural America at its finest. Truthfully, after a decade on the job, the cities weren't much different. Once you spend 3/4 of your days on the road, the lines between states begin to blur until you can't remember where you wake up. Caesar slowed, trying to recall if Carmichael was right off the highway or not. It had to be. They all were. When he didn't encounter a single sign within 5 more minutes, he turned down a gravel road that led to a bright white farmhouse. A sun-faded red barn sat at the rear of the property, and a rusted weather vane noisily spun in the wind when he killed the engine and exited the vehicle. A big dog barked on the porch, but only lifted his head. A long tail flicked behind him. The screen door opened, and a tiny older woman peered at him from the shade. "What do you want?" "I'm lost, ma'am," he said, spinning in a circle, emphasizing the comment. "Am I close to Carmichael?" She came into the light, blocking the sun with her hand. "What's for you there?" He figured they didn't see many people in suits around here, except on Sundays and for funerals. Caesar loosened his tie, wishing he'd taken it off. Old habits die hard. "I'm visiting family." "Then you should know how to find it." "They recently moved there," he lied. "No one moves to Carmichael. Just away," she said. "Can you point me in the proper direction?" He did his best to ignore her ominous comment. What the hell was Harrison up to? "Take the 32 for another mile and go north. Roads are bumpy, so hold tight. You can't miss it." She crouched to scratch the dog behind the ear and vanished into the house without another word. The screen door slammed closed, and he was alone on her property. "Thank you," he said to no one. A mile farther, he deduced which road he was supposed to use. It was as characterless as they came, as if the town didn't desire visitors. Caesar signaled and stopped at the unmarked intersection. A municipal truck was in the ditch, an orange light spinning on the top. A man gazed at him and returned to his task, which apparently was painting over a billboard.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it. at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.